Now let's talk about that Chinese spy balloon. The one that shot into the headlines last week was shot down over the weekend and has deflated hopes of a China-US truce. The balloon was shot down by an American F-22 jet. China says this is indiscriminate use of force over a balloon. Do you know what their defense budgets are? China, $229 billion, America, around $344 billion, and now they've come to blows over a balloon. Would have been comical had it not been so serious. Two superpowers are on the edge. This is being called the official beginning of a new Cold War, and it's quite a story. Let's start from the beginning. A balloon appears in American skies. It throws the defense apparatus in a tizzy. They debate on the response. What should they do? Finally, the president speaks. Bring it down, says Joe Biden.
On Wednesday, when I was briefed on the balloon, I ordered the Pentagon to shoot it down on Wednesday as soon as possible. They decided, without doing damage to anyone on the ground, they decided that the best time to do that was when we got over water outside within 12-mile limit. They successfully took it down, and I want to compliment our aviators who did it, and we'll have more to report on this a little later.
They used a U.S. military jet to get China's balloon. They also got China's goat. Beijing has issued a strong statement saying it reserved the right to use necessary means to deal with similar situations. In other words, we've got jets too, and we can fire them too. But what will Beijing shoot down? That they haven't said yet. This is quite a mess though. Heads have begun to roll. China's top meteorologist has been fired and Beijing has tried all tricks. Last week it expressed regret over the incident. Now it is accusing the US of using indiscriminate force. It is calling the American operation a provocation. As for the Americans, they made it quite an elaborate affair. They dispatched multiple jets to take care of one balloon. Finally, this one took the shot. The F-22 Raptor, the most advanced aircraft in the world, also the most expensive. One F-22 Raptor can cost anywhere between $130 to $300 million, depending upon the specifications of the plane. A supersonic air-to-air missile was used to shoot down this balloon. It costs $400,000. Did America really need to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a balloon? Looks like a classic case of using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Well, that's the United States of America for you. Meanwhile, one thing is amply clear. The US and China are now in a state of Cold War. The events of last week are eerily similar to the first Cold War, the way it began, the one between America and Russia. You would remember how it began with the launch of the Sputnik in 1957, the world's first artificial satellite built by the Soviet Union. The US was taken aback. In response, it created a space agency called NASA and kicked off a space race between the two powers. 3 years later, in 1960, the Soviet Union shot down an American spy plane. A U-2 aircraft was hit by a surface-to-air missile. It crashed near modern-day Yekaterinburg. That's in Russia. More than 60 years later, the Soviet Union has disintegrated and America is shooting down Chinese spy balloons with missiles. By the way, this is not the first one from China. Balloons appeared during the Trump years too. Reports say there were at least 3 such sightings. They came to light only after Trump left office. Let's come back to this balloon, the latest one. US defense and military officials have shared some details. They say the balloon entered American airspace on the 28th of January. The first sighting was near Alaska, just north of the Aleutian Islands. Then it entered the Canadian airspace in the Northwest Territories. This was on Monday, 30th of January, exactly a week ago. A day later, on Tuesday, it crossed back into US territory. By Wednesday, the balloon was floating towards Montana. It came near the Malmstrom Air Force Base, home to American nuclear missile silos. That's when the US chose to act. America says the balloon was being used for reconnaissance. What is China's defense? Beijing says this balloon was meant only for research.
China has discussed the relevant situation with the US multiple times. This is also a civilian airship used for scientific research purposes. Affected by the westerlies and due to limited self-control ability, the airship severely deviated from the planned course. This is an isolated and accidental incident.
Well, there are still questions we don't have answers to, like where was this balloon launched from? How did it come all the way to the US? What was it capable of doing? As we wait for those details, we can tell you that such balloon sightings have been happening the world over. In 2020, a balloon was spotted in Japan. Last year, some unconfirmed reports had emerged in India too. They said a balloon or a balloon-like object had been spotted over Port Blair, the capital of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Indian forces have a strategic presence there in Port Blair. It's not clear what action, if any, was taken by India. Meanwhile, Costa Rica, Colombia and Venezuela have also reported such sightings. So far, the US is the only country to have shot down such a balloon. Like it's been trying to shoot down other Chinese proposals. I'll give you one example from 2017. Beijing came up with this offer. It wanted to build an ornate Chinese garden in Washington, D.C., a garden with temples, pavilions, and a 70-foot pagoda. Do you know how much money China wanted to spend on this? $100 billion on a garden. It was an attractive proposition. Local officials thought it would attract thousands of tourists. But the US intelligence shot it down. It pointed out several red flags. That 70-foot pagoda was the biggest one. Reports say it would have been built at a strategic location, one of the highest points in Washington, D.C., about 3 kilometers from the US capital, a perfect spot to intercept signals and gather intelligence. Of course, America rejected the proposal, and China sent a balloon. You could say the US is getting a taste of their own medicine. They've been infamous for snooping. From surveillance aircraft to signal intercepts to spies, the US uses all of them. And of course, there are satellites. Both America and China have extensive satellite networks. The writing, we say, is on the wall. Espionage shaped the last Cold War. It is beginning to define this one too.